Hello, to start off Chapter 6 in Algebra 2, Roots and Radical Expressions, to find the nth root. First we have to talk about radicals and what different vocabulary we have with radicals. First we have the radical sign. This right here would be the radical sign. So you'll hear me say radical or root a lot because it's also the same meaning, means root. My index here is this n. This is going to tell me how many pairs or groups I am looking for. And the radicand, that's the number inside the root, which is right here. I typically will not say radicand. You'll hear me say radical, root, and index. Those are the three words you're going to be hearing a lot, so you have to make sure to know what that means. So first, when I'm talking about an odd root, that'd be something that might look like this. Odd means the index is odd number. So if I had the third root of 8, I have to try to think what number gets multiplied 3 times and gets an 8. And we'll go over that here. Even root, a square root is even, or else you could also have an even root with like a 4 as an index or 6. So the index is the odd and even root. That will tell you if it's odd or even. So finding the original. When I'm looking for the original, I have to think, how can I work backwards? So real cube roots. So that's going to be an odd degree. You have to be really careful when you're talking about odd and even. You can always have a negative answer for a cube root or an odd root, but not for an even. Because when I multiply a negative number 3 times, that can be negative. So if I'm looking for the cubic root for 0.008, that's how it would look like. The 3 is my index, and the 0.008 is my radicand. Now the other way that I can rewrite this, whenever you have a root, you can always write it as an exponent. So I could have 0.008, and that's going to be the same thing as raised to the 1/3 power, because this right here is your index. The index is the same on the bottom of a denominator for an exponent. Now some people might be able to look at this and say, oh, I know that this is equal to 0.2. That is my original. If not, you can always put this into your calculator. Now, again, with this negative sign here, if I have to think what number multiplied 3 times to get negative 1,000, so what was the cubic root of negative 1,000? My answer here would be negative 10. Because negative 10 times negative 10 gives me a positive 100. Times that by a negative 10, that's where comes the negative 1,000. Now when I'm talking about the fourth root, if I'm talking about the fourth root with just 1, it would look like this. What was the fourth root of 1? And what number multiplied by itself 4 times is equal to 1? That's just 1. Or else you could try to do 1 to the 1/4 power because it's my index. Now this problem is a little bit different, negative 0.0001. Right away, I know that this is going to be a no solution. There is no number that I can multiply 4 times together and still get a negative. Because if it was a negative 0.1 times a negative 0.1 times a negative 0.1 times a negative 0.1, this would become an even number. So again, this would be no solution. I am going to be going over 3 different ways that you can simplify a radical. Make sure to watch all 3, or if you know there's a way that you prefer, you should write down the steps in order to solve it. So the first one, just simplifying. What's the index? If no index is shown, like here, that means that it has an index of 2. So I'm looking for 2. Next step, rewrite each term with the power of the index. So I could rewrite this so it says 4 squared. I could also rewrite the x to the 8th, so it says x to the 4th squared. And then simplify. So whenever I have the index of 2, and then once I rewrite these with powers of 2, those basically all just cancel each other out. So my final answer would be 4x to the 4th. That's the first way that you can simplify radicals. And I know this might have seemed easy, but once we get into numbers that have a higher index, it might be getting more difficult to simplify this way. So simplifying, breaking it apart, This is another thing, you always have to look for the index. So again, the index here is 2. So write each variable by itself. So I know I can rewrite 16 as 2 times 2, that's 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. And then 8 x's. And then since I know that my index is 2, then I'm looking for pairs. So here's a pair, 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 and here's a pair. So anything that is circled comes out. So if I look at this, 1, 2 comes out here, 1, 2 comes out here, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you always multiply once you take them out of a root. So this would be 4x to the 4th. Same answer. And the last way is using your factor tree. So this is more in case if you are not good at multiplying and knowing what numbers multiply to get 16 to look for pairs. So 16 could be 4 times 4. 4 times 4 would be 2 times 2, and here's 2 times 2. And then you could just write out your 8 x's. Again, I'm looking for groups of 2. Another way that I explain to do this, when you're looking for your index, in this case it's 2, is circle 1, cross out the remaining. So that's a pair. Circle 1, cross out the remaining. Circle 1, cross it out. And the reason why I say circle and cross out is now it's easier to see, okay, everything that's circled comes out of the radical. So these 2's come out, and again, anything that comes out is multiplied. So that's a 4. And then all of these x's come out that are circled. And there's 4 x's, so it'd be 4x to the 4th. Again, you choose which way you want to solve when simplifying radicals. Right now, I want you to pause the video and attempt this problem all by yourself. Be careful because right now it says the index here is 3. So I did a longer version and I did a shorter version. The longer version is actually writing out all 6 A's and all 9 B's, and I circled and crossed some out. And I would say if this is difficult for you, then I would start by doing this version. Otherwise, you should rewrite the radical like so. Or the other way that you can think about this is using your head and think, okay, if I do 6 divided by 3 and 9 divided by 3, that would give me a squared b to the 3rd. Because remember, a to the 6th, b to the 9th, the cubic root of that is just the same thing to the 1/3 power. So power to a power, we would multiply. So it would be 1/3. And last one, pause and check your answers with mine. It doesn't matter how you got the answer as long as you got the correct answer. So in this way, I wrote it as a power and then distributed, and I got x squared y to the 3rd. So in your head, you're thinking, how many times can 4, because that's my index, go into 8? That's 2 times. How many times can 4 go into 12? 3 times. And that's how I can also rewrite the problem. Make sure you took good notes so that you can get all of your points, and have a wonderful evening.